Present kiss me.
Drew here, and if I had to use one word to describe the second episode of American Crime Story, Impeachment, it would be cautious. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but I feel that this episode shows potential ways that the show could go wrong. I feel that it's important, if you're going to tell these stories, I feel like because this particular story, the Clinton-Lewinsky scandal, was, it was covered so extensively in the media and everyone knows details about it, whether or not they followed it when it happened, whether they're Americans or whether they live outside the country. Like, this was a big deal. So because of that, I feel like you really, really, really have to have a strong perspective. And I really was interested to see how Ryan Murphy and the other writers of this show were going to explore this and how they were going to, handle it in such a way that I felt like I was getting more insight into the story than I would have just reading on a surface level what happened. And this episode, I felt perilously close to being just a reenactment of things that we all already knew happened, which, like I said, that doesn't have to be a flaw yet, because this is the second episode, and I'll give them allowance that they're like, we have 10 episodes, let's set up really, really well and clearly what exactly happened between Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. And so this episode, there's a lot of just going through the details of their intimate encounters. And, a lot of it, it's handled very, very tactfully, very, very tastefully. I give credit where credit is due. I feel that Monica Lewinsky, who is a producer, I think it speaks well of her that she let them include a lot of incidents and allowed them to portray her as being, clearly very infatuated with Bill Clinton. Whether that actually, exculpates him morally is something that people are going to have to decide for themselves. I want to hear what the show has to say. I want to see them make the arguments. But this episode, this is just more or less portraying things. And I'm a little bit worried that they're going to take the easy way out and just let the audience make up their own mind about what they think about what happened. And I'm like, that's fine to an extent, but I feel like if you're going to do a show like this, you need to make a case one way or the other for how you view it. Was Clinton abusing his power, or was it okay because Monica Lewinsky was an adult and making her own decisions? I'd like to hear them make a pitch one way or the other. I'm sure people come into this with very, very strong preconceptions, and I'm interested for my part in hearing what the writers of the show think and why they think it. This is an interesting decision by the showrunners. This is the second series I've seen recently, the other being Why the Last Man, also on FX, where they've made a very, very conscious decision to focus on female characters rather than on the male characters that are involved in the story. Clinton here, a very, very good Clive Owen, although his face is constantly giving me the uncanny valley effect. The prosthetic nose and the hair and makeup, like from a distance, there were times this episode where I felt like I was watching Bill Clinton. But every time they went into like a close-up of him, it was hard not to get caught up in how much he doesn't really look like a normal human being with all the makeup and prosthetics that they're using. For some reason, it's worked with Linda Tripp for me, but it hasn't worked with him. I think they might have wanted to forego the nose, honestly, even though that is one of Bill Clinton's most obvious features. But Clive Owen, I feel that his acting this episode was very, very strong. The voice, I thought, was very uncanny.
This could be a problem.
It sounded tremendously like Bill Clinton, to my ear anyway. And the way he captured his mannerisms and his manner, you saw the charm and the charisma that won so many people to Clinton's side as he was a political candidate. And the thing is, though, this isn't his story. we're seeing Bill Clinton from the perspective of Monica and from the perspective of Paula and from the perspective of other characters who were affected by him. This episode, I mean, I think that you're seeing Monica, I feel like, in a very unflattering light as this person who is infatuated with him and in many ways, seemingly threw herself at him. Like from the perspective of Monica Lewinsky as a producer on this show, I feel that it's commendable that they showed such honesty in this portrayal of Monica and showing her, in some ways initiating encounters with Clinton. And like there's a particular incident where, she exposes her underwear to him, and it's done, fairly tastefully in the show. But it's telling that Monica asked them to put it back in. They had removed it because they didn't want to include anything that would make her uncomfortable, which I'm a little bit like, well, that's part of the reason I don't think you should have maybe had her as a producer. But to her credit, she told them to put it back in because I think she wanted this to be an honest portrayal. She wanted people to see it as it really happened and not to have it filtered, not to have key details like that are very notorious left out. Over the course of this episode, I was like, well, what's the perspective? What's new here? Because they said that they were going to give the female perspective on this, and they really, to my mind, did not. So I'm hoping that as the series goes on more, there will be a stronger sense of perspective. But this episode, I don't really know that there was. Otherwise, I mean, notable things this episode, we see Paula Jones's civil lawsuit moving forward. She has this right-wing character, Susan Carpenter McMillan, come aboard, played by, the wonderful Judith Light. And the resemblance between this character and her real-life counterpart is really, really strong. And it's an interesting addition to the story. This woman who says she's a feminist, but is also just very, very, very conservative. I do feel like this show wants to make her the butt of the joke, that she's, making these statements about different issues that they think are incompatible with her feminism. But I think it's interesting that the character of Susan Carpenter McMillan, there's this clear comparison between her and Linda Tripp, where they're both kind of engaged in relationships with these women that, were affected by Bill Clinton. And they both kind of take on a familial relationship with the women that they are pretending to try to help. But at the same time, they're opportunists and they're looking out for themselves. So to me, the comparison there, I think that it just comes naturally because I think it's pretty accurate to the reality of this situation, or at least the reality as far as Monica saw it. So to me, I think that's an interesting parallel being drawn there. Otherwise, this episode, we get a little bit more time with Ann Coulter, played by Cobie Smulders. And just like, I went and watched some YouTube videos of Ann Coulter after watching this performance, because I was like, this seems uncanny to me. And it's spot on. Like, she's doing an amazing job, which, people on the show keep touting the fact that she was brought in at the last second to replace Betty Gilpin in this role, so that it's really impressive that she does such a good job with so little time to prepare. And I think that's definitely the case. I think that it's interesting. Ryan Murphy loves his celebrities, and, Ann Coulter, I don't think she was actually that important to this incident, but, she's a celebrity. She's someone that has an outsized personality, and it's fun watching actors get to do these impersonations of these people. But I feel that the performance of Cobie Smulders here is one of the better ones in the series, and that you can totally see that it's her. I don't think they've done that much as far as makeup goes, because this is a young character. I think it would be hard to lather on too much makeup and still have it seem like Ann Coulter. But she talked about how she listened to the audiobook for hours and hours and hours to try and get the cadence and the tone and voice right, and I think she just nailed it. So she's a lot of fun to watch. She's such an outrageous character that every time she's on screen, she's just fascinating. Whether you love her, hate her, I think that it's safe to say the audience for this show probably hates her, but I do think that the way that she's being portrayed here, she's one of the more fascinating individuals every time she's on screen. Otherwise, this episode, we have Monica finally reveal to Linda Tripp that she is having was having an affair with the president. And they've definitely taken Monica's side, that Linda acted a certain way and manipulated her and encouraged her and egged her on. Linda Tripp in real life claims that this isn't what happened. She claims that she was horrified for her. You see glimmers of that, I feel like, in Sarah Paulson's performance. I think she did some really, really subtle acting with her eyes. You could see a little bit of like horror in them and dawning realization, but simultaneously the advice that they have her giving Monica, oh, wait on, don't leave DC. He's gonna change his mind and he's gonna want to be in a relationship with you still. It's because he loves you that he hasn't contacted you in so long. That portrayal is very much more in line with Monica's story about what Linda Tripp did. So, they're definitely taking a side there. And it's kind of painful to watch Monica giving herself over to this woman who doesn't apparently have her best interests at heart. Something researcher Madeline Kaplan said on Vulture in a fact-checked piece where she gave the show pretty high marks on the whole for accuracy to her understanding of what actually happened. But one thing she brought up is that they kind of made the timeline pretty hazy. And I thought that was actually kind of a smart decision for the most part, because I think that, it kind of replicates the memories of people involved. Like, it's kind of hard to remember when things happened and what sequence, how far apart different things were. And the way that we know what happened is largely just based on people's memory of it. Like, that's the evidence for it. So to me, to have things kind of be hazy the way that memories are, I felt like that was a savvy route to go. So on the whole, I enjoyed this episode. Ryan Murphy sure knows how to make an entertaining show. I was just hoping for a little bit more of a take on things. But again, they could go there later. There's still time. So those are just my thoughts on this episode 2 of American Crime Story Impeachment. For what they are worth, if you're interested in seeing upcoming reviews on this channel of this show and other shows, please consider subscribing. And as always, thanks for watching.